Picture this. A man. On live television. Tears in his eyes. Begging the public to help find his missing neighbor. Name. Description. Please, if anyone knows anything. Her body was 30 feet behind him. He had put it there the night before. Then he walked outside, found a news camera, and cried. This is not a story about a monster hiding in the shadows. It is a story about a man who sat in the same classrooms as his victim. Who passed her in the hallway. Who attended the same law school events, parked in the same lot, lived 30 feet down the same corridor for 3 full years. A man nobody looked at twice. This is the Stephen McDaniel story. And it gets so much worse. To understand what was taken, you first have to understand who Lauren Giddings was. Lauren was 27 years old. A third-year law student at Mercer University School of Law in Macon, Georgia. She was 8 days, from completing her degree. She had grown up in Crownsville, Maryland, in a close, loving family. Her sister Kares was one of her best friends. They talked regularly. They checked in on each other the way people do when they actually want to know how the other person is doing, not just the surface answer, but the real one. By every account, Lauren was the kind of person who made rooms warmer just by being in them. Approachable. Genuinely funny. The kind of friend who remembered the details of your life weeks after you mentioned them in passing. Her professors called her sharp and focused. Her classmates remembered her warmth first. She had chosen law with purpose. She had a future mapped clearly in front of her, the bar exam, a career, a life beyond Macon. After 3 years of grinding through one of the hardest academic programs there is, she was right on the edge of everything she had worked toward. 8 days away. She lived alone at the lofts at Mercer, converted warehouse apartments, affordable, close to campus. A lot of law students lived there. It had that particular quality of places where you see the same faces enough that they start to feel familiar. You recognized your neighbors. You waved crossing the parking lot. You nodded in the elevator without needing to know someone's last name. One of those familiar faces was a man named Stephen McDaniel. 25 years old. Also finishing his 3rd year of law school. Quiet. Studious. Socially stiff in the particular way that reads as nerdy rather than alarming, the guy who does not quite hold eye contact, who answers questions a beat too literally, who seems a little more comfortable with books than with people. He had been in Lauren's orbit for 3 full years. Same courses. Same study spaces. Same building. Same parking lot. Same hallway. Not a single person in their shared world would have named him as someone to worry about. That invisibility was not accidental. It was something he had spent years carefully maintaining. June 26, 2011. A Sunday. Lauren Giddings could not reach her sister. Lauren was not answering texts. Not picking up calls. She had missed something she was supposed to show up for. For most people, this would be a minor worry, a dead phone, a long nap, a busy afternoon. But Kares knew her sister's rhythms. Lauren was reliable. Lauren checked in. Lauren did not simply go quiet. Kares made the call that set everything in motion. She reported Lauren missing. Macon police responded. They came to the lofts, spoke with building management, and began working through residents. The people they spoke to expressed concern. Nobody had seen Lauren recently. One of those residents was Stephen McDaniel. He answered the door calmly. Said he had not seen Lauren in about a week. Expressed concern. Came across as cooperative, maybe a little socially awkward, but genuinely worried. The kind of neighbor you would not look at twice. He did not mention that he had a key to her apartment. He did not mention the camera. He did not mention that he already knew, with complete certainty, exactly where Lauren was. He had been inside her apartment. More than once. Without her knowledge. Without her permission. Ever. For 3 days, Lauren Giddings was officially a missing person. Her face circulated on local news. Her name spread through social media. Her classmates shared posts. Her family waited. Stephen McDaniel watched all of it from 30 feet down the hall. June 29, 2011. 3 days after Lauren was reported missing. Stephen McDaniel walked outside and placed himself in front of a WGXA news crew. He wanted to speak about his missing neighbor. He wanted to help get the word out. What followed is one of the most chilling pieces of footage in the entire history of true crime coverage, and I do not say that lightly. On camera, he is visibly distressed. Shoulders drawn in. Voice unsteady. He speaks about Lauren with apparent anguish. The community cares, people are looking, he just wants her to be safe. He sounds like a worried neighbor. He looks like a worried neighbor. He performs grief with enough texture that a stranger watching would feel sympathy for him. He is mid-sentence when a detective steps into the frame from behind. The detective leans in close. Speaks quietly into his ear. 4 or 5 words. That is all it takes. What the detective told him, Lauren's remains had been found. Behind the building. In trash bags. Stephen McDaniel's face does something almost impossible to describe and completely impossible to forget. It does not crumple the way a grieving person's face crumples when they receive the news they have been dreading. It freezes, and then it caves. Not with sadness. Not with shock. With the sudden, catastrophic, full-body realization that the thing he did is now real in a way he cannot contain or control. He had chosen that spot. That camera. That moment of public performance, because he believed it gave him cover. Because a grieving neighbor cannot be a suspect. Because standing in front of a news crew, begging for information about a woman he had already killed, felt like the safest place to be. And in 4 seconds, in front of a live camera, all of it collapsed. He knew. He had always known. Because he put her there. Lauren was reported missing June 26 by her sister, Caris. She hadn't heard from her. Lauren wasn't responding. Wasn't picking up. Hadn't shown up somewhere she was supposed to be. Caris knew her sister's rhythms. She knew something was wrong. Police came to the lofts. Knocked on doors. One of those doors was Stephen McDaniel's. He said he hadn't seen Lauren in about a week. Seemed worried. Seemed cooperative. What he didn't mention, he had a key to her apartment. Not his key. A master key. Access to her space she never gave him. 3 days later, June 29th, he stepped in front of a WGXA news camera. He was visibly distressed. Voice breaking.
We don't know if this is the same person.
Hands searching.
You know what I mean? Like, they took out
He talked about Lauren.
We don't know if it's the same person or not.
About how much the community cared.
They know who lived there.
About how much he cared. He looked into the lens and said he hoped she was okay.
I think I need to sit down.
Then, mid-sentence, on live television, a detective walked up and whispered in his ear. Watch what happens to his face. Because what the detective told him was this: Lauren's remains had been found. In a trash bag. Behind the building. He already knew. He put her there. And right there on live TV, watching him realize the thing he did was about to become real, his face breaks. Not with grief. With exposure. If you are watching this and you are not subscribed yet, right now is the moment. Hit that subscribe button and turn on your notification. Every week we cover cases like Lauren's, told the way they deserve to be told, with the person at the center. Don't miss the next one. When investigators began pulling back the surface of Stephen McDaniel's life, what they found was not chaos. It was not the debris of a breakdown or the aftermath of a sudden, uncontrollable rage. It was infrastructure. He had obtained a master key to Lauren's apartment. Not a duplicate of a neighbor's key, a master key. The kind held by building management. The kind that opens every door. Exactly how he obtained it was never fully confirmed in open proceedings. But that he had it, and that he had used it, was established by the physical evidence investigators found. He had been inside her apartment when she was not home. Moving through her rooms. Her bedroom. Her bathroom. Her private belongings. Existing in the most intimate space of her life as if he belonged there, while she was out, completely unaware, trusting that her home was her own. He had also set up surveillance. Investigators determined he had used a camera on a pole to film through her window at night. He had additional equipment capturing the hallway outside his door, the hallway she walked through every single day. He had recordings. He had watched them. Repeatedly. How many times had she walked past his door and smiled? How many times had she waved at him in the parking lot, said a polite hello, treated him the way you treat a neighbor, not knowing that he had footage of her? That he had been inside her home? This is what obsession looks like from the outside. The target's life continues completely normally. She studies. She calls her sister. She makes plans for after graduation. She waves at her neighbors. While someone in her immediate orbit has constructed an entire secret relationship with her that she does not know exists. Built it piece by piece. A key. A camera angle. A door cracked open while she is in class. Behavioral analysts who study cases like this describe a specific escalation pattern. Obsession that is covert, sustained, and physically close does not stay still. It grows. The access that once felt satisfying stops being enough. The recordings stop filling the need. The distance between watching and acting narrows, slowly, quietly, over time. And then Lauren announced she was leaving. 8 days from graduating. Taking the bar. Moving on from Macon, from Mercer, from the lofts. From the hallway. From him. The entire system he had built around her, the key, the camera, the secret proximity, the illusion of closeness, was about to become worthless. Investigators believe this is what finally pushed him from obsession into decision. She was not going to stay. So he made sure she never left. Digital forensics is the part of criminal investigation that people consistently underestimate. Devices do not forget. They log. They timestamp. They store the shape of a person's intent in ways that feel private, but are not. Stephen McDaniel's computer became one of the most damning witnesses in the entire case. Investigators found search queries related to human decomposition, how a body breaks down, the timeline of decay. Searches for methods of disposal. Searches for how forensic investigators work, what they look for, how physical evidence degrades over time. Some of those searches were conducted before Lauren was even reported missing. Sit with that for a moment. Before any police report. Before CARS made the call. Before Lauren's face was on any news program. There was already a search history on his computer describing, in practical terms, what to do with a body after you have killed someone. This is not a man who snapped. This is not a crime of passion followed by panic. This is a man who researched. Who planned ahead. Who thought through the logistics of murder and concealment the way a methodical person thinks through any problem they intend to solve. How long had he been thinking about it? Was there a specific moment when the decision became real in his mind, or did it build so gradually that even he could not have named where it started? The digital evidence, layered onto everything else, the key, the camera, the recordings, the physical evidence at the scene, built a picture that left very little room for interpretation. He had thought about this. He had prepared for this. He had researched what came after. And then he executed it. The evening of June 25, 2011, Lauren was in contact with people. Texting. Present. Alive in the ordinary, unremarkable way that people are alive on a Sunday evening, tired, probably, with the bar exam ahead of her and graduation on the horizon, but fine. She had no reason to be afraid. She was at home. In her apartment. In a building full of people she recognized. In the early morning hours of June 26, Stephen McDaniel used the master key. He came prepared. He wore gloves. He wore a mask. These are not the details of someone overtaken by emotion in a moment they did not plan. These are the details of someone who had rehearsed this in his head and made deliberate choices about how to carry it out. Lauren Giddings was strangled in her own home. 27 years old. 8 days from the finish line. In the hours that followed, he worked to conceal what he had done. The method he chose, trash bags, the dumpster at the rear of the building, reflected the research he had done. He had thought about this step too. Had tried to account for it. Then he returned to his apartment. He slept. And the next morning, when the calls started and police arrived at the lofts, Stephen McDaniel came downstairs and became a concerned neighbor. He stood 30 feet from where he had left her and told a news camera he just wanted her to come home safe. Forensic psychologists call it insertion behavior, when someone who committed a crime deliberately places themselves inside the public narrative surrounding it. It happens more often than people realize. The killer who volunteers to help search. The murderer who gives interviews. The person who stands in front of a camera and performs grief while knowing exactly what they did. It serves multiple purposes. Visibly grieving creates distance from suspicion. People do not expect the perpetrator to be the one crying on the news. Staying close to the investigation lets the perpetrator monitor how much police know, gauge how close they are getting, adjust accordingly. But beyond strategy, behavioral analysts consistently note something else at work in insertion cases. There is a psychological pull toward proximity to the crime. A need to exist at the center of the consequence. To be seen grieving the person you destroyed, by the people trying to find out what happened to them. Stephen McDaniel understood, on some level, that standing in front of that camera was a risk. He did it anyway. Because he needed to. And it was that interview, that specific choice, that unraveled everything. Not because he confessed. Not because he slipped up verbally. But because the detective's update caught him completely off guard, on a live camera, and what his face did in the next 4 seconds was something no statement, no lawyer, no performance of innocence could ever walk back. Investigators moved quickly after that. The master key. The camera equipment and recordings. The search history, timestamped to the days before Lauren disappeared. The physical evidence connecting him to the disposal of her remains. The case assembled with the terrible efficiency of evidence that was always there, waiting to be gathered. Stephen McDaniel was arrested. The neighbor who cried on TV. If you have made it this far and you are not subscribed, please do it now. It is the single best way to make sure you never miss a story like this one. Hit subscribe, hit the bell, and Stephen McDaniel was charged with malice murder, the most serious charge available under Georgia law, reserved for killings that are both intentional and premeditated. He maintained his innocence. His legal team filed motions, challenged evidence, and stretched proceedings across years. He was not a man who folded quickly. In 2014, 3 years after Lauren's death, he entered a guilty plea. Life in prison. No possibility of parole. There was no trial. No witnesses cross-examined in open court. No full public airing of the forensic record. For Lauren's family, the plea spared them the experience of sitting through graphic evidence presented and challenged for weeks or months. That is something. But it also meant a door that never fully opened. The precise timeline of his obsession. How many times he had entered her apartment. The full extent of the recordings. What those final hours looked like inside his mind. All of it remained sealed within the terms of the agreement. Justice was served in the legal sense of that phrase. The complete truth was not. That is a specific, permanent kind of loss, the kind that Kares carries, that their parents carry, that everyone who loved Lauren carries alongside the grief itself. They know what he did. They will never know all of how long he had been doing it. And does knowing the full timeline change the weight of it? Or is it exactly as heavy regardless? Lauren Giddings would be 39 years old. She would have passed the bar. Built a practice. Had a career. She spent 3 years of her life earning the right to begin. She would have had ordinary Tuesday evenings and long phone calls with Kares and summer plans and inside jokes and all the specific, irreplaceable texture of a full life. None of that happened. Because a man she had done nothing but be polite to decided that her life was something he could take. Lauren did not make a mistake. She did not miss a warning sign she should have caught. She lived in her home the way people live in their homes, with the basic, reasonable assumption that the door is a boundary that means something. She was friendly to her neighbors the way decent people are. She trusted the place she lived. And someone who had spent years quietly, methodically erasing that boundary, who had been inside her apartment, watching recordings of her life, researching what came next, took that trust and used it against her in the most permanent way possible. The fault belongs entirely to Stephen McDaniel. Only and completely to him. But Lauren's case became a reference point in conversations about stalking for real reasons. Know who has master key access to your building and what the management policy is. Pay attention when something feels off about a neighbor, even if you cannot name exactly why. Trust that instinct, the one Kares trusted when she could not reach her sister. And if someone in your life is showing you the early signs of obsession, the fixation that does not respect your indifference, the presence that keeps finding reasons to be near you, the feeling of being watched without proof, take it seriously. Not because it always escalates. Because sometimes it does. Lauren Giddings deserved to walk across that stage 8 days later. She deserved every single thing that was ahead of her. Say her name like it belongs to someone real. Because it does. It always will. Rest, Lauren. If this story moved you, subscribe. That is genuinely the best thing you can do for this channel. Every subscriber tells us that these stories matter, that the people behind them matter. Hit subscribe, share this video, and we will see you in the next one.